Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our performance and management meeting. We are meeting on a quarterly basis, so we will be announcing our meetings in our user meeting, as well as having the meeting information also listed on our website on our calendar. Today, we will be covering the following topics. We will review the project performance report process and also go over the published report for Q1, which is emergency shelter, street outreach, homelessness prevention, and review our data quality report cards. We wanted to provide a quick overview of the project performance. Sorry. Give me a second. Thank you for your patience. We wanted to provide the project performance overview so that our community understands the purpose of this report. The project performance report includes all projects that participate in HMIS and highlights different measures that HUD and RCOC have determined are important in effectively ending homelessness for clients in Orange County. We also have a handy guide that provides additional details for each goal and the goals that are applicable to each project type. And for projects that are receiving COC funding, it is also important to review these goals as it is used in reviewing the NOFL scores. We also wanted to provide some details on the goals and where those sources came from. So each goal has its threshold, and each project type has a specific threshold goal. And the sources are coming from HUD, our local COC, and also the Data and Performance Management Committee. So over time, as our community is meeting the threshold, the committee will further discuss in adjusting the threshold so that we can continue to work in making improvements, performance, as well as making creating new goals for our community. We also use guidance from the National Alliance to End Homelessness for some of the measures. And for those who are familiar with the system performance report, our goals also aligns with HUD's system performance report to ensure that we are meeting those goals and working towards ending homelessness. So I just want to pause here so everyone can review the goals and where those sources came from. These are the other goals that we also look at. PPR, goal 11 through 14 is only applicable to PH projects. Recently, our COC wanted to look at coordinated entry data. So goal 11 through 14 is fairly new compared to the other goals. We've been reporting this goal for about over a year now. Before these goals were implemented, the Data and Performance Management Committee reviewed the goals and determined the thresholds for our community. I just want to pause real quick if there's any questions or discussion regarding some of the measures we use to review the PPR.
Sorry, could you just go back one slide?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have the project performance overview. We'll include that into the meeting minutes, but it's also available as we send out draft data. And we wanted to discuss the data cleanup process. The HMS team does have a schedule that we send out each project type. Each project type is reported twice a year. However, agencies that participate in OCHMS can run these reports as on a monthly basis as needed to do data cleanup. Data cleanup process, it is important for the team to understand the data elements that's collected in HMS. Some resources that we recommend the team review is the HMS data standard, as well as OC HMS knowledge base articles that breaks down those data elements to help the team understand how to accurately collect that information. We do also have the project performance report available in Clarity for agencies to run to review goals that are applicable to the specific project type they're reviewing. There's also the details report that provides client level data to support the agency to review to complete data cleanup. During the review process, of course, review data for accuracy and correct any data errors and rerun the report to verify the changes have been processed. And if there's any questions regarding the data, any errors you're reviewing with your report, please do submit a ticket to the HMS Help Desk. We're more than happy to further discuss those errors and help you in making those corrections. During the draft data for each PPR, the HMS team will be sending out the draft data to the agencies. So it would be goal 5 or goal 10. For other goals, the agencies can run that in Clarity, and we'll review that example in the next slide. We have project performance report dashboards that the agencies can run if they're participating in OC Clarity. This will give you a snapshot of your agency and your performance. So for the goals that you can run would be 1 through 14. The only goals that the HMS team will send is goal 5 and goal 10 because it requires some work outside of Clarity, and goal 10 includes data from other agencies. During the draft data review process, we do recommend running it and adjusting it to the correct reporting period to review your data. You'll notice under the tile, they'll list the color codes so you can review the data that's displayed for each tile. In this review process, your agency is asked to verify this information is accurate. If there's any errors, please do make those corrections. For example, goal 7, you'll notice project 3, clients exit without any income. If you actually click on this bar, you're able to expand into a new window and it'll list all the clients that are recorded during this measuring reporting period and in this measure. So you can verify if it could be data errors that there were income, but it was not collected and entered into HMS accurately. So taking the time to review and ensure the data is accurate is very important so that the data reflects your project accurately. And then I just wanted to take just a second to pause if there's any questions regarding this dashboard. And the pathway to access this dashboard is going to reports, clicking on the data analysis tab, expanding the Orange County Clarity System reports, and then scrolling down to project performance report. You'll see that each project type has a dashboard and a details report. And for our partners that don't use OC Clarity, we would be working with your export and providing you back a copy of the draft data for review and corrections. So this is our most recent emergency shelter PPR report. So you'll see that we do display the score over time. And for this recent report, our COC met 3 out of the 7 goals for emergency shelter. We continue to meet and surpass goal 6, which is helping adult increase their income while they're still participating and active in the emergency shelter. Goal 5, we've seen increases in the last 3 report in increasing unit utilization, as well as goal 10, ensuring clients that do exit to a current housing situation do remain housed and are not returning to the homeless system. We wanted to highlight and go over goal 1. Clients who are entering emergency shelter, our threshold is 100%. So our community is expecting clients that are entering emergency shelter to be entering from a homeless situation. Currently, our project score is 90%, so we are under this threshold goal, and we are seeing that a handful of the percentage is missing data. So we wanted to further discuss with the group and see if there's any discussion on improving this goal. As we're reviewing data and hearing feedback from agencies that it could be that it is data errors. With this question, we have noticed that it could be that the client is providing their living situation prior to being homeless, so that is not accurate. So it would be, where are they staying the night before entering the project? So just ensuring that if the participant is not understanding the question, that we are rephrasing it so that the participant understand how to respond to this question accurately. I don't think I see any questions or discussion in the chat, so I'll move forward for now. We did want to highlight from the emergency PPR report that goal 5, we've seen increases in the last 3 reports. We also received feedback from partner agencies that they've been able to increase their emergency shelter capacity. Either it was the capacity was adjusted to their original inventory prior to COVID, or that they receive additional funding to increase beds at their emergency shelter. So we did have a question in the chat. If a client doesn't have an SSN, what is the best option to choose that does not come up as information missing? The HMS data standard guide provide guidance that for clients that don't have social security number, that it would have to be the selection would be client doesn't know. Unfortunately, that will flag it as missing information. There is a threshold for data quality. So for a certain universal data element, all of that information needs to be collected for clients, but it is the threshold we have is 98% in general. So there is room for missing data as there are clients that don't have social security numbers. The next report that we'll be reviewing is the Street Outreach PPR. We only met one goal this past quarter, which is goal 10, ensuring clients that do exit to PH situations, they are not returning to a homeless system. Something you'll notice that the threshold for street outreach is slightly different from the other goals because RCOC community understands that with street outreach, there is higher chance of losing contact with the participant. So the data threshold is adjusted to account for that. Wanted to highlight goal 1 again for this project type. Street outreach or for we are expecting these clients are entering from a literal homeless situation. So our project score currently is 89% and the threshold is 100%. So we wanted to ensure to highlight this to have agencies to work with street outreach projects, ensuring that the data collected is accurate. It could be due to data entry errors or that the client themselves were not entered into the correct project type.
Elizabeth, do you want to talk a little bit about clients that are not entering from the streets and that would be a different project, the service only project type?
Yes. Thank you, Erin. So the HUD data standard does recommend for projects agencies that operate street outreach to have a corresponding services only project so that clients are enrolled into the correct project type. If they're not coming from a literal homeless situation, they should then be enrolled in street services only. Erin, feel free to share any additional guidance if I've missed anything.
No, I think that's mostly it. The only thing I would add is that if you are a street outreach provider and you are serving clients that are not entering from homeless situations, then please work with our team to services only projects so we can track those clients separately. Homeless situations would be from the streets or a place not meant for human habitation, emergency shelter, or safe haven or projects.
Thank you, Erin. And I wanted to know, we have worked with some agencies that have street outreach project. They've set up a services only project so that once the client enter shelters or enter into a housing project, that there is still an overlap of services. So they'll exit the client from street outreach and enroll them into services only for a short period of time just to have that warm handoff and overlap of services to ensure the participant is provided ongoing wraparound services. So there are those situations where you would be enrolling clients into services only and not street outreach. Our team wanted to review goal 2. The goal of street outreach is to move participants into shelter or permanent housing situation as quick as possible, as because the participants are on the street, they're very vulnerable, and we want to decrease that time. Our community has put that threshold at 65 days. Currently, our average is about 84. On the next slide, we'll be going over street outreach exit protocol. There could be some data errors that affects our score, so wanted to review that and ensure our partners that do have street outreach provide this guidance to their team that's completing data entry. But we also understand with limited resources that participants are enrolled in street outreach longer as your team is continuing to provide supportive services to transition the participants into housing situations. If there are any data errors, we do want your team to make these corrections so that your project is reflecting the correct performance for your projects. So for street outreach, there is a time where these clients should be exited from street outreach. So you'll see in purple is street outreach enrollment, the date that the client enters emergency shelter or transitional housing. They should be exited at the very start. With PH enrollment, there is a time where they are matched to an opportunity but have not yet moved into that unit. So once they move in, that's when street outreach should be exiting. And these are positive exits. If they exit into emergency shelter or transitional housing or PH, you want to accurately reflect that so that your street outreach has a positive and successful exit. We also wanted to highlight goal 8, help clients exit to successful housing situation. Within the past 4 reports, our community has met or is close to meeting this threshold. So we just want to highlight that the project score was 19%, very close to meeting the threshold. And you'll see that there is a lot of missing information as we understand with street outreach. There is participants that maybe lose contact with their caseworker, or case manager. So it's important to try to keep contact and help the client move into housing situation. But we understand that with street outreach, there is higher chance of losing that contact. Just want to take a quick pause. If there's any questions or any discussion regarding street outreach, feel free to add that into the chat or unmute yourself to share any feedback or questions. I don't see any discussion in the chat or questions, so we'll move forward for now. I do want to note that we are just going over the project overview, but each agency that has a project that is either emergency shelter, street outreach, or homelessness prevention, there is a separate report for project level score. So that is available on our website under the reports tab. So feel free to review that to review your project level score. The last report, last PPR for Q1 is homelessness prevention. So for this report, our COC continues to meet these 3 goals, which is goal 6, helping adults maintain or increase their income while enrolled in the PH project. You'll notice that this goal is slightly different from other project types. Other project types are looking at the income being increased, but with homeless prevention, we're also looking at maintain. Same with goal 7, it's helping adults maintain or increase their income at project exit. And goal 10, ensuring participants that do exit to PH project aren't returning. With homeless prevention, it's slightly different since they are already in a housing situation. It's stabilizing their housing and ensuring that they don't enter the homeless system. Homelessness prevention, we wanted to highlight this goal and ask for the group for further discussion. Our threshold goal is to provide services to stabilize the participant housing situation so that they don't enter into homelessness. The threshold is currently 60 days or less. On average, our project score is 245 days. We received feedback that some of our partner agencies, their homeless prevention project goal may have a longer timeline since participants they work with have higher needs. We just wanted to highlight this goal and ask the group for some feedback and discussions or any questions regarding this goal.
Hey, Elizabeth, this
Hi.
is Natalie. Oh, go ahead. From Families Forward, just to talk about this goal, would the committee ever consider looking at the goals since now the average days are so much higher, and some of the organizations have said that their projects do allow a longer stay in the project?
Thank you, Natalie, for your feedback. We want to open up to the committee if there's any feedback or questions. If the committee would consider adjusting this goal or any feedback in keeping the goal.
Natalie, did you have a recommendation on what you think it should be?
I'm not sure. I mean, I could base it off of just what we've seen. Some of our projects can allow up to 2 years in the project. And of course, that's not our goal. So we just don't know where the happy medium is. I'm wondering maybe something like we were talking about emergency shelter, about how we move them into a services only. Like if we help them get out of their at-risk situation and we're able to keep them housed, but then we are still offering supportive services to them, could we move them into a services only type project? But yeah,
That was gonna be my next question is, are you providing rental assistance that whole time?
I think it varies. So some of our projects, they're allowed to be in a project for up to 2 years, and they may need assistance for the first 3 months, but then they stabilize for the fourth month. And then let's say something happens in the fifth month, medical emergency, so they're not able to make their rent on the fifth month. So then we're allowed to provide them rental assistance on the fifth month. So it is kind of hard for us to tell like at what point do our families need assistance.
I would
And so
just
they
add,
could, oh, go ahead.
I would just add that generally, yes, the time that they're open in the prevention program, we are offering rental assistance in general.
So it's possible throughout that 2 years to receive rental assistance.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know that I would recommend changing to a services only project if that's the case, because you wouldn't want to keep moving the client back and forth between the projects. We can think about that more, but that's my initial thought. Are there any other prevention projects from agencies on the call that function in a similar way, or any other feedback you want to provide on this measure?
I think I would just add with the new prevention project, the large one with the different districts. I think that one is going to be long term as well, and that project has been awarded. So I don't know if maybe looking at some of the stipulations for the length of programs in those might help create an average, because that's going to probably be one of the more prominent prevention grants coming into the system. Some of them that we have are kind of like temporary or one-time grants. So I don't know if that might help inform the appropriate length of project.
I don't think I've heard of that one. Do you know who's awarded and who's funding it?
Okay, yes. So it's with the different districts. It started with District 2 with Vicente Sarmiento, and it was awarded through the county. But all the different districts contributed funds for this kind of larger scale homeless prevention project. I don't know if who was awarded has been announced. Does anybody else know that? I can follow up for some information to see if that's been announced, and then forward that to you, Erin.
Yeah, or if you just have just like there's a website or something that has information on the grant, we can look at that too. Liz is saying it has not yet been announced. But yeah, that's a good point, Rose. We can keep an eye out for that and see if there's any guidelines for that data.
Thank you all for sharing your feedback. We do want to discuss the threshold and further review to ensure that the threshold is applicable to our community. So if there are any suggestions or changes to this, please feel free to let us know. And for those who want to think about it a little bit more, feel free to submit at HMS Help Desk if you would like to further discuss some of the thresholds regarding the PPR reports. I don't see any other discussion in the chat, so we'll move forward for right now. I wanted to highlight goal 8. We are very close in meeting this threshold. So with homeless prevention, the goal is to stabilize the participants' housing to ensure that they don't fall into homelessness. So we are very close to meeting this threshold. We are noticing also there is some missing data. So it could be that participants were offered services and there was maybe loss of contact and the agency is unable to make contact to exit the client to collect the correct information. And with homeless prevention, ensuring that those these are participants that are currently housed and providing services to stabilize their housing. As we're working, our team's working with agencies to review their data. Sometimes we've noticed that, again, it could be that participants are entered in the wrong project. They could be that they should be enrolled in a recovery housing versus homeless prevention. So there could be some data errors with enrolling the client in the wrong project. So it's important to review your data, ensuring that the participants are enrolled in the appropriate project type. Just wanted to take a quick pause for the group if anyone would like to share some feedback on goal 8, how your agency is doing with exiting client to successful housing situation, any tips that you could share with other partners that may find this find some challenges with this goal. I don't see any messages in the chat, so we'll just move forward for now. So for the next couple slides, we're going to be reviewing data quality. And we also wanted to share with the group some dashboards that are available for your agencies to run to review data quality. There is a data accuracy dashboard. This is a dashboard we usually review with each agency during the audit and through user meeting. It's a helpful dashboard to identify any errors. It does provide a snapshot of all your data, enrollment and exit data, but we do recommend scrolling to the potential data quality issues section, as it will highlight any errors that you should further look into. For example, it would some of the tiles that we recommend reviewing is disabled client without disability type, housing move-in date errors, date of birth after project start, and approximate date of homelessness started errors. And to access this report, it's going to be, you can follow the pathway of going to reports, going to the data analysis tab, expanding the Orange County Clarity System folder, and then going to the data quality section. You'll notice that on the tile, under each tile, there is a description to help explain what the data you're looking at. So for disabled client without disability, it's going to be a number of clients that reported a disabling condition. So that field would be yes, but then the disability list underneath, none of those were selected. So it is ensuring that if they did say they have a disability, that a disability is selected. And the next one would be clients without a disability reported. So if on the enrollment screen, the client has one of the disabilities selected, such as mental health, but when the disabling condition field is selected, no. So ensuring that both fields are reflected accurately. If there is a disability, the disability field should be yes, and one of the disabilities should be selected.
Hey, Elizabeth, I have a question. So we would mark disabling condition yes if like the mental health disability was long term. But if it was not long term, then we would still select no, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And feel free to share any feedback regarding those data elements.
Yeah, so for most of the disability types, I think it's physical, chronic, mental, substance use. It has to be long-term and or indefinite duration in order to qualify as a disability, and the disabling condition can be yes. For developmental disability and for HIV/AIDS, if they answer yes to either of those, then that is enough to qualify as a disability as well.
Thank you.
So we do have a question in the chat. Is it possible to create an alert on the field so that the disabling condition, if selected yes, provide user error message? Thank you both for your questions. Regarding the alert, there is a warning. So if a user selects yes to a disabling condition but does not select one of the disabling condition and it's not long-term, there's going to be a message that pops up at the very end. It's just a warning, so the user can still save the data, but they'll always see that warning flag to go back to make that correction. So either or that either you select the disabling condition and did not select a disabling disability, it would list that, and the reverse, if a disability was selected but this disabling condition was not selected, then it's also going to have that warning. So there are warning messages on the enrollment screen. Thank you for your question. The other tiles you mentioned, these are just examples as well. Approximate date homeless start error underneath each tile. As mentioned, there's going to be a little bit of a descriptor to help you identify what this error is. It's going to list numbers of rooms with approximate date homeless start, date after project start, as well as date of birth, project start, date of birth after project start. So this error is mostly for families who have a newborn and enrolled into their project. So the newborn or the baby project start should be when they are enrolled. It shouldn't match the head of households. So we've seen errors where the baby's project start would be matching the head of households. However, they were born maybe a year or so after. So their project start should be when they are enrolled and participating in the project. Just want to take a quick pause if there's any questions regarding the data accuracy dashboard. And I want to note the dashboards are interactive. So when you're in Clarity running these reports, if you click on the bar, it would expand and provide a list of the participants that are flagged for these potential errors. We do have a question. So date of birth for the newborn in this case should be the project start, correct?
So the newborn project start date probably wouldn't be their date of birth because they're probably in the hospital that day, but it would probably be the day after or whatever the newborn comes home and officially starts staying in the project. It could be the date of birth, but probably not.
We have another question in the chat. Enrollments without services for emergency shelter are service required, or does that result in an error? So for that tile, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just identifying that those enrollments didn't have services recorded for the project. So it's just for your agency, if you are required to track services, it's identifying enrollments that don't have any services tracked for that client during their enrollment with your project. And Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, services aren't required to be tracked, but depending on your grant requirements, that's how that tile is helping you identify those errors.
Yeah, it's not a requirement for all projects. It depends on your grant. It also depends on how your agency is running. Ideally, there would be services for all projects, but we do know that there are some exceptions.
Thank you all.
And just to kind of reiterate, so the purpose of the data accuracy dashboard is to help you review your data to see if it looks the way you think it should look. So if you know that your project doesn't provide services, then you can look at that tile and be like, yeah, that makes sense. These clients don't have services. We don't provide services. So the dashboard is to help you easily look at your data and kind of ask yourself those questions and be able to have those answers. So if you know your project serves all men, and you look at the gender and it's not all men, then you can go in and review that data and see if that's accurate. Or if you know your project is serving all veterans and there are some clients that aren't veterans, you can go in and review that as well. So that's how the dashboard should be used. It's not necessarily saying you have to make corrections. There are some tiles where that's true, like for example, the two that Elizabeth is showing here. But some of the tiles are more informational to help you make that decision for yourself.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate the additional guidance. We also have Universal Data Element completeness dashboard. All agencies are required to collect universal data elements. So this dashboard gives you a quick review of any data quality errors, and it's listed by project. And you'll notice, similar to other reports, underneath there's a key that lets you know green, responses are valid and complete. Yellow, it's going to be client doesn't know, client refused, which is now client prefers not to answer, and red is data issues. So data issues would be impossible. So those are the ones that you do want to make sure you make corrections for. And purple is for missing data. So there are times where client refuse or client doesn't know would be accurate. So no corrections would be needed for that, but that's just to highlight to ensure that you're reviewing and verifying that that is accurate. Similar to our other dashboard, they are interactive. So if you were to click on the bars, it would expand and show the list of participants that are listed in this measure. And if you click on the personal ID, there's going to be a drop down where it will say view profile and clarity. Then you can go directly to that profile to review that those potential errors. This is our overall project score for Q4. We publish the quarterly, the quality data quality report cards on a quarterly basis. You'll notice that at the very top of the report, there is a drop-down list. You can select your agency and look at your agency overall, but also a project level filter that you can look at each project type, or sorry, each project. And to the left-hand side, it's going to provide information whether it's a valid response, a client doesn't know, client refused, client preferred doesn't answer, data not collected, blank, or data issues. So data issue is impossible, so those things we want to ensure to correct. So our average score for our COC for Q4 is 96%. And it is important that we review and ensure the data is accurate so it reflects your project correctly. We also have, on the report card, we also review data timeliness. So this is the score for Q4. The threshold that HUD provide guidance is that data should be entered within 3 days. So you'll notice that we have data timeliness. We're looking at project enrollment, services, and exit. On average, this is how we our COC does from quarter to quarter. We do want to make improvements in entering data in a timely fashion so that the COC as well as your agency can review data and ensure that it's accurate. This is also important as in if your agency is running monthly reports, ensuring that all the data is entered in to the prior month so that when yourself or other users are running the report, they have the most accurate data that reflects your project. We also have Q1 published on our website, similar to as discussed. It's going to look at valid answers. So valid answer is a there's data entered and it is valid. Yellow meaning that client didn't provide an answer or doesn't know or refused to respond. Gray would be any blanks, and purple would be missing or data not collected, and pink would be again any data issues. And this is our timeliness scores from Q1. Just want to take a quick pause if there's any questions or discussion regarding data quality reports. And thank you for your patience. I know we're a couple minutes over, but we just wanted to have the opportunity for anyone who would like to share any feedback or questions.
Elizabeth, a question. Early on in the presentation, you shared about system performance measures and scoring and things like that. And at the match meeting, we've been running against a new situation since the creation of the Survivor CES process. And we are getting offline matches. I guess that's the best way to describe it. In family CES for families that are in that survivor system. So we were just wondering kind of like how that works systematically, how that will be tabulated into the performance measures. I know one of our goals is specifically, these are happening in our HUD, COC HUD funded contract for 100% matches through CES, but they're offline, so they're not really showing up in the system. So that just kind of got us a little bit confused, and we're wondering if you had any guidance.
Thank you for your question. Erin, could you please support, would this be our team recreating to ensure those are recorded in HMS?
I'm thinking about it.
To expand on your question, are these clients, they're matched offline, but they're enrolled in HMS, correct?
They are not enrolled in HMIS because they are through the different DV agencies. So those are not, they're not in HMIS, but they're in the new Survivor CES process, which I don't actually know where those names are being housed. I don't know if it's like an Excel spreadsheet or anything like that. So they're not in HMIS at all. Once we get the match, we figured we would see if we could get consent from the family to get into the systems to enroll in our program, but we can't facilitate the match in the system.
So just a general note about consent, client consent. When clients are signing the consent form, they are signing for their data to be shared with other agencies in HMIS. You don't need their consent to enter the client into HMIS. And so even though the client is a DV client, they can be entered by you into HMIS because you are not a victim service provider. It's different for a victim service provider. They can't participate in HMIS, but once the client comes to your project, they can be entered, and you can enter them without sharing their data with the other agencies, and you would do that by setting their record to private, so then only your agency would be able to see it.
Right.
But in terms of the matching, the DV survivor list is outside of HMIS. I'm trying to think if there's a way for us to flag that somehow. And I kind of want to say no right now, but that's something we can look at and try to figure out a solution, because if they're enrolled in your project and it's a a COC fund project, it should show that linkage from coordinated entry. So we can work on that.
Okay, perfect. Just a quick bit of information. We're working on with the question with FSC, because they're the ones that were facilitating the match. And we had the same thought you did, Erin, but then a lot of questions started to come up. And then also FSC reached out to Rebecca before she transitioned, Ricketts. And she said it would be an offline match, but we didn't quite agree with that because it needs to be facilitated in the system. So we're just trying to figure out like what the best way to move forward is.
Yeah. Well, you are right. We will think about that and get back to you, and we'll get back to everyone.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your question and bringing that up to our attention. We'll be online for a little bit longer if there's any additional questions or feedback, but I just wanted to thank all of those who joined us today. Our next meeting will be August 14th. Again, we'll be sending out this information in our newsletter, as well as announcing it in our user meeting, and it's also available on our website, the meeting information. Well, thank you all for joining. I don't see any additional feedback or questions, so we'll hop off, but feel free if there's any questions, please do submit a ticket to the HMS help desk. And we will further discuss there. Thank you all. Have a great day.